Yeah, all right. Sitting here in the dyno room up at Neil Montgomery's race shop with our guests for today. Jeff Montgomery, 2006 NSRA champion, multiple Wilroc wing class championships, and two-time Wilroc non-wing sprint car champion. Jeff, thanks for coming and having a chat with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Should be good. Let's do it.
Yeah, get out of the way. Obviously, we're missing one person. Chris Miller got called into work. I know he was very happy about that, but we're sequestered here in this little cubbyhole looking at fuel-injected 360 that Neil's tuning up here for the upcoming season. What do you guys got planned for the 2018 season?
Well, we had a rough year last year with our wing car. We broke every motor we had, so we started rebuilding in September and finally got most of our stuff back in January, February, and so our backup motor's on the dyno here. Get it ready to go, and then we should have our good motor within the next week or so, get it dynoed and get in the car, and then we're going to run the Wayne's Trucking series. We're going to run May 5th, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then there's another race in May in Roseburg, Oregon. We're going to that one. Then after that, I think it's Strawberry Cup in June, first week of June or whatever. And then the following weekend, we're going to go to Meridian, Idaho for the NSRA race there.
So obviously pretty busy for you guys now, back heading off island. What made you decide to bring out the wing car a little bit more than you have been the last few years?
Well, we had a lot of fun running the light car. We had a lot of success. We had a blast doing it, and we just feel that maybe it's time. I don't have too many years left, so we figured maybe go back and run some NSRA stuff while I still have some young blood in me still, kind of thing. But and my dad's getting older too, so it did work. Traveling wears on you, so we figured it's now or never kind of thing. So we figured we'd we got our stuff together, and we figure that we can be competitive, so we figure we're going to run off there and run some of those races. Plan is to run as many as we can, as long as equipment holds up. We don't have a problem, either wreck the car or break up all our stuff again, because that's always a bit of a downer. But so I'm saying Meridian. I'd like to run them all, but until we get to Meridian, you just don't know what's coming around the corner. So.
Exactly. And how'd this thing all start? You obviously had to get into racing somehow. Your dad obviously involved with it for a long time, being surrounded with it. Your brother, Russ Lejeune, and a lot of good people surrounding you must kind of lean you in that direction.
Not really. I raced with my brother. I crewed with my brother. I was too young to race with my dad. So when he was done racing, my brother was racing, and I hung out with my brother, and we raced street stock at Western Speedway, did some enduros, and I was racing BMX. I was deeply into that, so I didn't really have an opportunity to drive. And then I think it was one of my brother's cars we'd put together and put it into an enduro, and I ran that, and then that was the start, and it just went from there. And it went from enduros to stock cars to claimers to late models, stock cars and late models and sprint cars. So
I think maybe a little spell on the dirt there for a little bit.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Actually, we took our stock car up there originally. I hauled it up there and ran. They had a class up there. It was super street stocks. I took my stock car from Western Speedway and took it up there and ran a bunch of races and had a lot of fun. And then at the end of the year, my dad and Russell offered the backup car to my brother, so I drove that, and it was a bit of a tank, tough to drive, but I was able to cut my teeth and then doing that, and then that lasted for a year, and sponsorship dried up, and they said they couldn't afford to keep me in the car, which is fine. And then I carried on to do my own stuff, built my own stock cars and stuff out at the Speedway, and they were off racing. They went and started running some NSRA stuff, and I stayed home and ran some stock car stuff, and then I ran my own stuff, and then Rocky Horn contacted me to run a stock car because Robbie Haslam broke his back, and said, well, Robbie's supposed to run the car, but he's broken his back, so we'd love to have you drive it. So I jumped in that, and we had a lot of fun, won a lot of races. Rocky always gave us great equipment to race with. He always kind of went above and beyond to make sure we had the best equipment we could have. We ran really good, and at the end of the year, I think he sold the car and bought a late model, and so him and I went up to Campbell River and picked it up and brought it back, took it to Lejeune's, and they did a bunch of work to it, and we did a bunch of work to it, and then we ran it. I think we ran it 2 seasons in Victoria. I ran with Tim Christie and Lou Moline and Mike Haslam and stuff, and some of the best times we ever had racing. It was so competitive. We had 20-some-odd cars every night, and we had some great races. I think we won a ton of races. I think one year I won 9 or 10 races out of 11 or something like that. And then I was at home, and Rocky called me and said, the second or third year we ran one race, and he phones me up. He goes, do you want to drive a sprint car? I said, not really. I like the late models. I love racing late models, and we had a lot of success doing it. So he's like, well, I just traded this late model for a sprint car. I'm like, oh, man, I don't really think that's a good idea, but whatever. So we ended up picking this thing up. I think he traded with Bart Smith on this deal, and so
doesn't everybody trade with Bart Smith?
Yeah. So that's how it all started, and it was a pretty rocky road. I got in that thing and I took it to practice, and I didn't really feel super comfortable in it. It wasn't hard to drive. It was just the car was super twitchy, but I didn't know any different because I didn't have any seat time in a sprint car. So I thought, oh, this is just the way they are. So I tried to adjust, and we went out, and I forget how I qualified. It was a Strawberry Cup. It was like my first race, Friday night. And so I went out and I won my trophy dash. It was all good, and got in the heat race. I was started somewhere in the middle of the field, and we took off on the green flag, and the guy in front of me went, and then the motor quit, and I was behind him. And little experience I had, I didn't know that I shouldn't try and drive around him, and I jumped his right rear wheel and clipped the flag stand and flipped over on the front stretch and came down really hard and absolutely destroyed the race car in the first lap. So yeah, wasn't very happy times with Rocky was the announcer, so he got to watch his race car get destroyed, and I was lucky I didn't get hurt and got out of it, and we went home, packed everything up, went home, and Rocky was like, we're fixing it. I'm like, he goes, I can't afford to fix it. We're going to fix it. And I was like, all right, man, let's do it. So we hauled it down to Lejeune's, and they put a front clip on it. And I think we got it together the race before they had a Wilroc series in Victoria. So we ran the race before the Daffodil Cup in Victoria. I can't remember where it was. It was Victoria. I think we went to Victoria or Saratoga or something, and we didn't win that race. And then we came to the Daffodil Cup, and we actually finished Daffodil Cup without wrecking. And so the next year we were running a full Wilroc schedule, and that I think that was my first championship that I won in a wing car. It was like 2003 or something like that. Yeah, so that's how I got into it, and then we had always had a really good sponsor on the race car, McLeod's Blasting Supplies, and as I tore up Rocky's race car and tore up some of his stuff. Jeff said, Rocky couldn't really afford it, which fair enough. He was doing what he could, and he always gave me the best stuff. But Jeff decided to help out and ended up buying the car off him. He became my car owner, and so we won 3 NSRA or Wilroc championships, and then I think it was 2005. We decided to go run, kind of pick and choose. We ran some invitational races in the States, ran some NSRA stuff, and ran some Wilroc stuff and won some races. And at the end of the year, we were like, my dad's like, okay, well, let's, I think you're ready to go run some NSRA stuff. We'll run the whole series. We're like, yeah, let's do it. So our intention was to run the whole series, never really to run for a championship. And halfway through the season, we were looking, we're like 10 points out of the lead here, running third. I think it was Andy Alberdine, and there was Craig Deaver out of Washington, who was a super competitive guy. My brother raced with him and battled for championships.
Yeah, the Black 15.
Continuous years. They went toe-to-toe. Anyway, so here I find myself in the heat of the battle with these 3 guys, and me with the least amount of experience, thinking that I didn't have a chance at winning that championship. So we come to Victoria, and I won both races at Daffodil Cup. And then we had our last races at Meridian Speedway. I had never been there. So we didn't think that we had. I was still sitting second in points, even though I'd won the 2 races. And then we loaded up, went to Meridian, and we won the first night. And I think I was behind Craig Deaver by 1 point or something going to the second night. And we were able to win that night too. So I won the last 4 races of the year to win the championship. And we left Meridian, Idaho, just in complete awe. We didn't think it would ever happen, and we were able to pull it off, which was really cool. Came home and I said, I'm done. I'm retiring. Like, I've had enough. Like, we raced our butts off and had fun, and we did what we wanted to do. And my dad's like, all right. So I told Jeff. He loaded the car into a trailer, hauled it out to Machosen, and parked it under a tree somewhere in the trailer with everything in it. And took the year off, or so I thought. And then my dad says, well, I got this old race car here. Do you want to run the Daffodil Cup this year? I'm like, not really. Like, I'm kind of done, you know. I want to take the year off and just have some time to myself. And so he talked me into running the Daffodil Cup that year. I think it was 2007. And then I got back into running in 2008. We ran some local Wilroc stuff. And then in 2009, we decided that we actually sat down and said, well, we're going to run for NSRA championship again, try and win that. And it was the same sort of scenario. We were in the hunt. I think I was behind Matt Hine by 10 or 20 points going into going into Victoria. And I think it was a Friday night of the Daffodil Cup. I jumped a wheel and totaled the race car on the Friday night, so our championship sort of charge came to a screeching halt and on the backstretch of Western Speedway.
You talk about that one. I think you were trying to go around the outside of was it Marty?
Yeah,
the guy
from
Alberta, the 94 car.
I can't remember his last name now.
Yeah,
super nice guy. Always ran Wilroc, but I had a super fast race car that night and drove around him going in turn 1, and the car stepped out on him. I jumped his tire and I went straight into the wall at 100 and something miles an hour and flipped over and totaled the race car. It was a brand new car we just built that year. A&A had put it together, and it was a quick race car when we first got it, and then I wrecked it, which was too bad. Anyway, so we come back to the shop with our tail between our legs thinking that the party was over. And we didn't race a Saturday night. I don't think I could have, even if we had a race car. I was pretty banged up. Like, I wasn't thinking straight. It was so bad. Anyway, so we came back to the shop on Monday, and we kind of cut the front clip off the car, and he's like, well, we got that old Lejeune car. Do you want to put it together and go to Monroe? So we still got a chance. I'm like, yeah, we're racers, let's do it. So we scrambled, put a motor in it, went to Monroe, qualified, had a quick time, broke their motor qualifying. So we destroyed a race car the week before, broke our good motor and qualifying at Monroe on the big racetrack there. And then, so he's like, what do you want to do? I said, we got our backup. Let's put it. We didn't come here to not race. So we put our backup motor in. Ran the feature. I got up to second, I think, and broke a motor again, second time, and pulled it in. It was pretty sad because we pretty much wrecked everything we had. Everything was in shambles. So same thing, packed up, came home. Monday, Dad calls, says, do you want to come down to the shop? I want to talk to you. I said, sure, come down. He's like, do you want to go to Meridian this weekend? So
seems like Dad has been the guy that's kind of carried the thing for a few years here.
Oh yeah, he's an animal. He doesn't quit. So we put our Wilroc motor and went to Meridian. I don't know how we finished, but we ended up finishing second in the points or something like that. And yeah, it was quite the year for sure. And then after that, we just kind of raced around the Northwest, picked a race here, picked a race there. We didn't run for any points until we got into doing some non-wing stuff, which was really successful. We had fun, and then now we're thinking we want to go run some wing stuff and see where that takes us, and see if we can keep all our equipment together for a while.
So obviously the non-wing stuff kind of came about because you can run way more races locally and don't have to travel and don't have the big costs associated with that.
Yeah, that was a huge factor because there was no wing series in Victoria. So if you wanted to race, you had to go south. So we decided we had an all-wing car here that my dad and Russell owned years ago, and they ran some USAC stuff. I raced some USAC stuff with it. They took it to Turkey Night with Chris Melsey, and I drove it Turkey Night once, and then just sat in our shop. We put a wing on it, raced it at Meridian. Well, after we wrecked our other car. So it's just sat in the shop, and we were talking and thinking, well, if you want to run some races, let's run some local stuff. And that was our only real alternative. So we ripped the car apart and we had to change a bunch of stuff because it was a USAC car, so it had a lot of titanium in it, and engine plate was wrong, so we had to change a whole whack of stuff to make it work, and we had to get a new fuel cell and stuff. So a little more work than we expected, but we put it together, and then Russell Lejeune teamed up with us. We used his motor because we didn't have a motor the first year, so we ran his motor for the year, and I don't think we ran all the races. I think I missed a few. We won a bunch of races, and then the following year we built our own motor and then ran the next 2 years on that motor, so 2 or 3 years or whatever. So, and that was it. So we parked it and decided to kind of focus on our wing car. Last year I ran okay in my wing car. We didn't run really well. If you're not in them all the time, it's tough to stay sharp, even with the setups and stuff, and because the two cars are so different that whatever you take from the one car doesn't really do much for you in the wing car. So they're completely different. Setups are different. How you drive them's different. So it's tough. If you're not in them all the time, it's tough to be fast in them. So we decided to just focus on one. It's a lot of work to run two race cars. I'm sure lots of people have tried it, but to run them is easy. Well, it's not easy, but to run them and be competitive is super tough, and then actually to win a couple of races. Like I think one night we won both the wing and non-wing races. I think in the Strawberry Cup one year or something like that. So, it's a pretty big feat. It's tough on the guys they're bouncing back and forth, especially because one car's got a carburetor on it, the other car's got injection on it. One car's running gas and the other one's running alcohol. They're totally different. So it's a couple. I think one time we put methanol in our non-wing car by mistake, and so that's what happens when you're running the two cars. Things get forgotten. It's just the way it is. You can't, unless you had two completely separate crews, and it might work. But we just thought it was too much to run both, so we thought we'd just focus on the wing stuff and see what we can do with that. So.
Yeah, obviously, maybe talk a little bit about kind of a driver's perspective from having to hop behind the wheel of two different cars, and then obviously the only races you're doing that on are 2-day shows, so you run a 30-lap and 30-lap race on the Friday, and then a 40-lap and 40-lap main on the Saturday.
Yeah, I think we figured it out. I think with hot laps and stuff, I was running about 130 laps a night in the car, so I was in the seat. Usually, once you get into August, it's hot, so you're dealing with heat and dealing with running a lot of laps, and it's not like you're running a stock car late model where they're there's the G-forces and stuff that play on you, the heat and that by Sunday I was pretty wore out. And I'm not so spring chicken anymore either, so so it definitely, it's a lot of work. It's by the end, I would start hydrating on like Wednesday night, drinking as much fluids as I could, because I knew the weekend was coming, and if I didn't, it was going to bite me, right? So it was tough, but we got through it. I don't know if I'm glad we're not doing it this year. Let's put it that way.
Taking a break from it, and obviously you did have a lot of success with that. How's your dad kept this, as we were saying earlier, how's your dad kind of kept this afloat? Obviously he's extremely involved in pretty much everything you've raced in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, what do you mean by keep it afloat? You mean like financially, or
just kind of being the guy that's kind of working on the cars, tinkering all the time. He's retired. He does have the free time. Yeah, he does, for sure. He's retired, so yeah, it's basically his full-time job. He's here every day and every night. But as a lot of people know, we do everything in-house. So we build our own motors and everything on the race car. If we need to build something, we build it ourselves or whatnot. So that's a big one, because you're not paying. If you had to pay people to do it all the time, it just wouldn't happen. I'm busy at work, so I can't be here every day. I pop by all the time and have coffee with Dad and help him out. But if I didn't have him, there's no way I'd be in a race car right now. It just wouldn't happen. It's just I got too much going on at work to be in the race shop, and so without him, it wouldn't happen. So he's
he's definitely, like I said, he's an animal. He doesn't quit. And he, if he has something we need made, he either makes it or finds a way of getting it built without spending a whole ton of money. And biggest ones are motors, and those wing cars. Those motors are big bucks, and I'm lucky enough that he can build his own stuff. He screw all our own motors together, does all the maintenance on them, fixes them if they break, and that's a huge factor. And we have our own engine program. Basically, we have our own dyno, and so we're able to get the most out of our motors. Where a lot of these guys just don't have that opportunity, right? So super lucky with that, and he's been able to make the best of that. A lot of that showed is years of racing with NSRA. We've always had very competitive motors, even though we're building our own stuff against guys that are buying stuff from Gertie or whoever that are pretty stout stuff, right? So we've been able to be super competitive. Our motors have always made lots of power. So it showed when we went to Monroe. We ran against the King Wing guys. A lot of the top guys are running 410 motors, and we ran our 360 motor. And I think we qualified second and came up half a lap from winning that one. And then packed up our stuff and went to Wenatchee, and I think I qualified third or something there, and ended up winning the race there. So we're not short on anything by any means. So, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and obviously you're talking about work and your business. Talk maybe a bit about Malhat Auto Wrecking and Metal Recycling and what you guys do.
Well, we do sell used auto parts. We buy crash cars from insurance companies, and then we inventory them and sell the parts back to the insurance companies. Insurance companies like ICBC are our biggest customer. And then our spin-off was our metal recycling. We produced a lot of in-house metal, so we've ended up getting into the scrap metal recycling side of things, where we buy and sell and steel and different sort of metals and stuff like that go along with it. So it's kept me busy, like it used to be just parts, which was pretty cool, and it always did really well. And then we got into doing the metal recycling, and that's made it busier. And so I'm hands-on with the metal recycling side of things, so because it is fairly new, so that's takes up a lot of my time. So, yeah.
And obviously, do you have a racing memory of maybe one that got away, one that you're kind of kicking yourself after?
Well, the one that got away, I would say the one in Monroe got away on me. It was, I don't know if you're familiar with what went on there, but
just a little bit.
I don't know if you watched the video. The video doesn't really tell the whole story. Partially my fault. I was leading the race. It was 10,000 to win, so I came down the front straightaway. I took the white flag, and I ran into lap traffic. And earlier in the night, I'd always been able to drive around the lap traffic, but that speedway is super tough on tires. So when we got down to the nitty gritty, I tried to go around the two lap cars going into turn one on the white flag, and the thing just didn't stick. I got in there. I was like, this thing I was sliding up the racetrack, and I couldn't get up off the corner, and then Matt Hine seen the opportunity, which fair enough. I would have done the same thing. He stuffed it in there and got up beside me, which was great. I thought, okay, we're going to race down the back straightaway, and I figured I could maybe pinch him down a bit, getting into 3 and get off 4 and win the thing. And then I gave him lots of room, and fair enough, he wanted to run me out a bit. So I ran out of racetrack, got into the dirt, and got sideways. And I thought I was going over, but I ended up spinning in the dirt on the backstretch and knocked the left front brake line off the car and stuff. And I was down, and he drove on and won the 10 grand. And I went from first to, I think I finished 15th or something like that. So that was a pretty hairy race. It was a great race. So him and I raced pretty hard. I got into him earlier, going into 3 when I passed him. I rubbered him up a bit and got him sideways and got by him. And then we had a couple of restarts after that. And I think it was a restart with 8 to go. And I'm thinking, I knew I had a fast race car. I thinking I just got to run 8 of my fastest laps all night, and I should be able to win this deal. And I did. I ran some great laps, but then I ran into those lap cars and kind of spoiled the party for me. But anyways, that was the one that got away from me for sure.
And going through Chris's list of questions that he normally asks, what's your favorite racing memory? Maybe not associated with so much a win, but just kind of a racetrack experience.
I've had lots, none that are like. I mean, they're all special. I've been lucky enough to win a ton of races, and I've won a bunch of big ones. And I mean, Wenatchee was cool because that was bittersweet to come back and prove that we weren't just lucky at Monroe. We were actually fast, and went back and won that one. That was a big one. Every Daffodil Cup win's huge, right? I like that. The championship in 06 in Meridian was cool because we won the last 4 races of the year. Went to Meridian, and nobody really even knew who I was, and they're like, "Who's this kid? Where did he come from?" Kind of thing. And so that was pretty cool. So I've had lots. I mean, even winning my my first non-wing championship was really cool. I thought that, because I watched those guys race, I'm like, wow, these guys are getting out of here pretty good. Like, I don't know if I can get her done with these guys. And then to go there and win some races and win the championship, that was cool too. So I don't really have a favorite. They're all special to me, but so I can't pick one out of the crowd. I've had lots, so I've been pretty fortunate.
Obviously, you got some sponsors to help you out. Maybe you want to plug those guys. I know Dracor Construction's come on big. The car is looking pretty cool out in the shop.
Yeah. Well, Dracor has been with us. Actually, there's a bit of history. I have a bit of history with one of the owners there, Kent Sheldrake, his partner Kevin Parker. They decided to step up the program this year, and they really wanted to be the main sponsor on the race car. So we gave them the top wing, and we ended up having to paint the car black. So you're going to see a black 33 car out there this year. That was strictly a sponsor deal. They wanted a black race car. It's kind of their signature color is black. Everything, all their equipment's black. That's sort of how they roll. But I've known Kent for years. I actually drove a stock car years ago. Ron Simpson owned it, and Kent drove it. And at the end of the year, Kent phoned me up and said, "Do you want to drive my stock car? Because I'm not very good at it." So I was like, "Yeah, man." We were like, I think we were like 19 or 21 years old. And so that's how I met Kent, and we hung out, and I drove the race car for the year, and we had fun and met all those guys and had fun and partied and drank some beer, and so we've had a relationship for years, and he's in the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, he's started sponsoring a race car again, and so they decided to step up to the black, and then so we still got everybody else. Mr. Mike's and Langford's jumped on board, so if anybody's out and about and is feeling hungry, make sure they support those guys. It's a new restaurant in town, so it'd be nice to see them, stay busy. We got Howie's Car Corral in Langford. Howie's a great guy. We actually do business together with the parts side of things. He's a racer too and a race fan, so he's been on board for a few years. Rich Lock Rentals. Mark jumped on board with us last year, so he wanted to have a little bigger presence this year, so he got him on the top wing too, which is muchly appreciated. Maxim Insurance, the owner down there, Bill Ray, he sponsors us too. He's great, local business. So we have Integra Tire, Dave Ferguson, Troy Ferguson down there in Langford, good guys. We have Malahat Auto Wrecking, obviously. Lordco Auto Parts in Langford, they help us out, and I think that's it.
Run through the full list. Nicely done. Yeah.
I probably forgot. I'm getting old, so it's possible I forgot one.
It's
might
okay.
have to run over to the shop there and look.
We might have the chance to talk in Victory Lane at some point.
Maybe,
this season.
yeah. Hopefully,
yeah.
I think I'm running the 5 races in Victoria this year, so hopefully I can get one.
Yeah, definitely, and maybe talk about running in front of the hometown crowd. Obviously, traveling around and then coming back to Western and kind of being that hometown guy that's traveling with the NSRA guys.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's always fun to come home because you always have a bit of an advantage because you've raced here all your life. So and all those guys hate coming here. So it's a nice advantage to have, and then be able to race in front of your friends and family is pretty cool. And they always get pretty good crowds in Victoria. So Victoria's a big race town. They get good crowds and people are into it. They're fairly knowledgeable of what's going on, which is really neat. So it's always fun to come back to Victoria and race for the weekend and sleep in your own bed. So
Yeah, definitely. And well, again, I think we're running close on time here, but just squeeze in a few more questions. Chris always asks, you have a pre-race routine? Anything you go through? Superstitions?
Not really.
Anything?
No, not really. I mean, I do have one superstition. I always have for years I had lucky underwear, and I don't know so I had these underwear that I'd worn for like 15 years, and they ended up getting to the point where I had to wear underwear underneath them because they were so worn out. So we ended up 2 years ago, I took them off and we hung them off the front of our quad. Yeah, so we've had them hanging off the front of the quad for the last 2 years.
If you ever go into the pits and take a look, Joe McMurtry's normally on the quad, and they have a pair of Canadian underpants to the front of it.
And those are my lucky underwear I started with, so they're still with us, barely. But yeah, that's the only one I really had.
Just hanging on by life support. Seemed to work
so far. Yeah, that's right.
I think definitely have the stats to back it up, and maybe explain to somebody who's never driven a wing sprint car kind of what it's like to hustle one of those things around.
They're pretty cool. They handle pretty good. You know, like when you get fresh tires on them, they're not hard to drive. The thing with those things is, I mean, they got tons of power, so you can burn the tires off them fairly quickly, you know, which can lead to a problem. But if they're working right, I mean, you can really drive the shit out of them is kind of what it comes down to. You know, unlike the light car where they're so easy to overdrive, and the wing cars, I mean, you can overdrive them, but they like to be driven hard, so which is pretty cool. They got lots of wing on them. They're stuck when they're working. If they're not working, they're not fun to drive.
So is that kind of a thing that you had to work on, switching between the wing car and the non-wing car? Not running it in really deep in the corners, not getting on the gas too hard?
Yeah, they're they're two completely different beasts, really. Yeah, it was tough. I prefer to go from the non-wing car to the wing car, but to go from the wing car and then jump in the non-wing car, that's not good. I think when I first started running the thing, a couple times I drove it in thinking I was in the wing car. You know, I was outside somebody and I drive it in a little too far, and I was like, oh, I don't have the wing here to help me out here. Backwards you go, and then so yeah, they're totally two different beasts, but they're both fun to drive though. You know.
Yeah, is there anything out there that you haven't driven that you'd want to climb behind the wheel of?
I'd love to get behind a late model again, like a super late model, and run some of that stuff, but it's just, I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I'd love to run the Canada 200 one time, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen either. So
there you go. If there's any late model guys looking for a driver, Jeff Montgomery is available.
Yeah, I loved running those late models and stock cars. I had so much fun with them, and just, you know, like I said earlier, like when Rocky said, do you want to drive a sprint car? I was like, no, not really. Like, it's not really, that's my brother's gig. Let him do that. I want to go late model race, and I really didn't have a choice. So I tried to wreck the car the first night. That didn't work.
It didn't work.
I was like, I'll just wreck it, and then I don't have to drive it. But, you know, Rocky being Rocky, he's like, no, we're fixing it. I'm like, really? All right, let's go. So that was pretty cool. It's tough, man, when you wreck somebody's race car. Like, it's different when you wreck your own stuff. When you wreck somebody else's stuff, it's tough, man. Like, come in and face the guy and say, sorry, man, it's just absolutely destroyed. It was even tough for my dad when I wrecked his race car in Victoria, and that was probably 100% my fault. It was just being too aggressive. I'd wreck a race car in a heat race. Like, what are you thinking? You know, so then, you know, I got to face him, and, you know, it's not the easiest thing, right? So I put lots of pressure on myself. That's the biggest thing is, you know, when you're driving somebody else's stuff, you want to keep them happy, right? Stay in the seat. But it's all part of the gig.
Yeah, definitely, and definitely you don't want to return somebody else's stuff well used up at the end of the night.
No, that's right. So it's been a sharp learning curve. You know, when you wreck a race car your first time out, then have to get back into it.
Did it kind of shake your confidence a little bit? Did it take a bit to get back to what it maybe was before?
Well, there wasn't really anything before because I had never been in the thing before.
So maybe that was a good thing then, that was on the first night. Got it out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. So it was baby steps from there. So Yeah, it was definitely humbling for sure. I think I'm like the first guy to ever hit the flag stand with a sprint car. Like, I know there's the guy that was the flagman for NSRA for years. They called him Rabbit, and he said I was the only guy that ever tried to knock him out of the flag stand. And then I was in Meridian qualifying one time. I came off turn 4 and the car was a little sideways coming out for the checker flag. I knocked the checker flag out of his hand. And he came down and he's like, you are really trying to kill me, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Meridian, where the flag stand is, it's pretty much on the top of the wall. So,
yeah.
But it takes talent to actually hit the flag stand at Western.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that was total talent. That was, that hurt actually. Because I came straight down.
Was that pre-Hans too?
Yeah, no Hans, nothing. I came straight down on my back. I was lucky I didn't get hurt. But that's
came out of it all right. Well, thanks again, Jeff, for giving us some time here.
Man. It's awesome.
Yeah. And again, if anybody wants to sponsor us, get Chris some of his money back that he's invested in this, hit us up at my email's announcercole@gmail.com, or check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Short Track Radio 1. And thanks for listening. Cool. And tune in whenever we feel like posting again.